Okay, long time no internal monologue, whatever it is. External monologue. Hayfever has given me some right jip fever. Let it go. Just let it go. Okay, let's just get through these loads of rubbish and see how we get on. See, clearly the book is going great. Yeah, I haven't touched it for ages, and it's still just got a few crappy chapter titles. The Sherlock series is coming on great. Haven't done anything. So yeah, I'm really, pulling out all the stops by stopping doing everything. I'm not even starting. I think I already did this one anyway. But anyway, my story idea about the lonely inventor would or should make a hero of the Norman Borlaug types. Whatever is how you pronounce his name. But that was kind of the idea. That kind of hero is a better hero than some of the heroes. What else we got? We are all engaged in the most complex Oh god. Okay, I'm just repeating myself every single time now. I think I must repeat myself on every topic. I've probably covered about 4 topics, and I've got however many hours, 100 hours. No, not 100. Say 30, maybe? I don't know. Just on the same thing, repeating the exact same sentences, but whatever. We're all engaged in the most complex game subject to game theory that could possibly exist in our current time. No matter how you argue for something to be worth heeding or taking seriously, you cannot do so without appealing at some level to that person's self-interest, the person you're arguing with, or at least you should be doing this. You should be arguing to that, and you certainly should be arguing for what you believe to be in their self-interest, even though this is ultimately because it is in your self-interest to do so. I think a common problem this line of reasoning would come from the people who claim they really do certain things for entirely selfless reasons, or if they don't, they can perceive of someone who could. I just don't think these people are considering the problem properly. If that were the case, that it would be worth doing something, even if it was in opposition to your self-interest, then why would you do it? Let's say you believe in some kind of unified consciousness, and that after death your body will unite with this one consciousness, and it is in the interest of this unified consciousness that you behave against your self-interest, or what you believe to be in self-interest. So why would you act on behalf of this one consciousness? Because you, to some degree, believe some part of yourself to be a part of it. The very idea relies on some aspect of you remaining in the unified consciousness and retaining some amount of experience of the benefits of existence. So, even if there was some kind of grand unified consciousness, right, which I'm not that opposed to in terms of emergent systems and things, emergent consciousness. I think that's what our consciousness is, and on the level that we experience it. So I don't think it's impossible to imagine it, given we interact with one another through means of communication, acting like some kind of complex neuron system. But anyway, the only reason you care, or you should care about that, is if you're in some way part of it, right? So you're doing it for yourself, okay? Because if you just died and it just continued and you just weren't there, oh god, I was going to do a whole bit on clones again, forgot to do it. Well, no, I didn't write about it in the end. Shit, what was it? Shit, dog. Shit. It's kind of like the oh man, I'm trying to remember. I can see the images of the thoughts that I was thinking, but I can remember what the actual thoughts were. There's someone who's got clones and they're in some kind of chair, and then they get put into a box and look out through a window at the clone having something done to them. Oh yeah, I think it was all to do with there being no self, right? So that's the kind of self that is an illusion. Oh, I've talked about this many times, obviously. So yeah, I believe that you can. I'm entirely on board with the idea of the self being an illusion, in the sense that you're the story that you tell about yourself, right? That's what they always say. Ollie, right? This me that I perceive to have all these characteristics and to be the author of my existence. I can imagine how that could just disappear, and what would be left would just be the state of processing information, right? Not in the form of thoughts, but just being like a microphone, or if you had your eyes open, a microphone and a video camera. Not having any thoughts associated with what information comes in. And then I can't remember the exact thought now, but if you had a clone, fuck it, I can't even. Should have just written it down. The self really is an illusion. We're really appealing to subject. The self really is an illusion. We're really appealing to subjective experience, which is literally all we have. Okay, I don't really know what I was on about that one. I think I was trying to get at the egoism. I think is just not a particularly useful word, so I just haven't come up with a better one. But whatever. I actually don't know that much about egoism. It just seems to be closest to what I've been talking about. But maybe it is different after all. Oh, maybe I have stumbled across something new. What culture has taught us, and that is in part self-evident, is that there are lots of ways that you can feel that you don't want to feel. You don't want to feel guilty, or at least you want to avoid it. You want to avoid feeling pain, fear, and feeling empty. Anyway. And there are many things you want to feel. Loved, loving, content, fulfilled, happy. Okay, a lot of people have problems with all of those words. Eudaimonia, let's go with that one. And then what culture, the humanities and religion and science have been trying to do, in varying ways, religion, kind of mythology rather than religion. Let's go with that, because, I think that's really what the Jordan Peterson types are getting at. Yeah, myth rather than kind of religion, right? I think language barrier. I've been trying to do in varying ways is show how to go about feeling those ways over the other things mentioned. Okay. I've been trying to do in varying ways is show how to go about feeling those ways rather than the less desirable ways mentioned previously. Stories in particular, so yes, religion, but also they are just stories, mind. Yes, religion also, but they are just stories, mind. Try to map out how certain life choices will affect reality if enacted. So, yeah, that's what the David Copperfield and Harry Potter and all those things are doing. Trying to teach you, yeah, how to go about living certain ways and how that will likely pan out. So if you get attacked by some evil wizard when you're a kid, you get Scar, then you'll trap part of his soul in you. Something that can be said for my idea of egoism is that I believe it sheds some light on the seeming counterintuitive aspects of our leading moral theories, namely utilitarianism. Take the trolley problem, for example, the fat person version, not the switch example. We are told that there is a sufficiently weighty and large person on a bridge that, if pushed, would stop the cart that is heading towards 5 presumably innocent people. I think this might in fact be the psychopath test, but anyway. I've outlined before my issues with this, mainly it being so unimaginable that it is in fact unimaginable, and that in a situation such as that, it seems impossible that the only possible recourse or way of saving the people is to use a fat person. But if you consider egoism as the true driver, you realise that perhaps the effort of forcing a fat person to their death, which I still fail to see how you'd be certain of its outcome, you would almost certainly incur a plethora of repercussions. Court hearings, psychological analysis, jail time, whatever, and your own personal conscience problems. And so it really may not be best for you. Although Sam's content is always of exceptionally high quality and cogency, he'll be beaten by he is being beaten, I think, to an extent, for some people, by Peterson because of the sheer quantity of Jordan's output. The kind of people who should and do listen to both these prominent thinkers use their content to fill their time, and Jordan is simply able to occupy more of their cognitively engaged time by producing more shit. So yeah, I think Sam's a better thinker and just a better, all-round better guy. But yeah, Jordan's, as he'd say, his conscientiousness is pretty through the roof, and Sam just takes a bit too... You need to be exposed to Sam. Like, you can't just keep listening to the same one. You need to be exposed to them on a more regular basis, yeah? Maybe it's just because Sam likes to think his things through more, right? Put more time into them. But, yeah, it's kind of like the supply and demand type problem, isn't it? When I try to picture how someone could be incredulous as to my basis for ethical egoism, I think one of the popular lines might be, and what I imagine someone like Jordan Peterson would be, and I picture it being said in response to me asking, "Can you not see how it would be ridiculous to do anything? Can you not see how it would be ridiculous to do anything that was theoretically, objectively, not in your ultimate self-interest?" Their response being, "But why favour your self-interest over anyone else's? Why not act in the self-interest of your brother, or your worst enemy, or society as a whole?" And ignoring the fact that I've stated multiple times that we should be attempting to act in all those self-interests that out ours, because that is what is most likely going to work out best for us. See positive sum games and symbiosis. The reason your interest is the ultimate standard, and should be at the top of your pyramid for ethics or for life philosophy, the pyramid of ethics or life philosophy or whatever, to suggest that it may be best for it not to be at the top of the pyramid because this may be best for you is stupid, because even then it would have to be at the top of the pyramid, or why else try to put something else there if not for the purpose of acting in your self-interest? Anyway, the reason answering the thing earlier about why not act in someone else's self-interest, or why not put their self-interest at the top of your pyramid or whatever, the reason is because your subjective experience is all you know. It's the final frontier for absolutely everything in the universe for you. I really didn't get that final point across well as the way I wanted to. What was it? Let's see if I can get it back. I don't see how we can get through it. So this is the it's Descartes, and it's the primacy of consciousness. It's the irreducibility of consciousness that Sam and all those keep saying. It's the last thing. It's the only thing that underpins everything. No matter what, you can't get any deeper because it's all that you can know. And that doesn't mean you have to assume. That doesn't mean it's necessarily better for you to assume that you're the only conscious person or anything, and that everything else could be a figment of your imagination. So then why? That's not the reason I'm saying it. It's that the only one you can ever experience is your own, right? I mean, your subjective experience is contingent on the quality of others, which is the other thing I've been trying to get across, the symbiosis and positive sum games, right? But the only one you're actually able to experience, and therefore the only thing that actually ultimately matters, is your own subjective experience. But it is almost certainly going to be best for you to act in other people's self-interest. And maybe this is the problem that people see. Maybe people don't believe that. Maybe it doesn't strike them as so commonsensical that to do that. So maybe the arguments I'm going to need to be making are why it would be bad for you not to act in the self-interest of others. And I mean, this is what the whole my argument is kind of predicate. What's the word? Fuck, I can't even remember the word. I just said it in my head and now I can't say it out loud. Something like predicated, but that's not the word. Predicated. There we go. Jesus Christ. How can I say a word in my head and I'm not... My argument is predicated on the idea that we've been doing this without knowing it, or without most of us knowing it throughout all time. And so that's why law has been created. Morals in general, I think, are based on this. And maybe I'm not saying anything new. I don't know. Anyway, so if you decided to murder people people, because that's not in other people's self-interest, it's probably they're going to make it so that it's not in. So they're going to make it so that it's not in your self-interest to do it anymore. By, I don't know, imprisoning you or maybe killing you back. Man, I just don't see how. It's so obvious to me, or it feels so obvious to me, that it makes it hard to argue for it. And if you do something that is in other people's self-interest, then they're likely to try and do things that are in your self-interest because they want you to be continuing to do the things that's in their self-interest. Alright, I'll leave it there. Getting tangled, ain't I?